So let's cultivate our motivation. So it's very important as practitioners that we develop our own inner strength, our own determination. Of course, we depend on our teachers from now until full awakening, and especially at the beginning of our practice, and in the middle and in the end, we need to depend on our teachers. But we do that and at the same time develop our inner strength, our inner determination. And so these two are not contradictory. Yeah, by following the teachings, then we will develop our own relationship with the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And as we develop that personal relationship with them, then our own inner determination grows, and we won't be adversely affected by what other people do, what they say, what they think. This is very important to develop in our practice, because we never know what kind of situation we'll find ourselves in. And we have to know that, our refuge is rock solid, and that our refuge is in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So we have to know what they are, what the three jewels are. And our refuge should not be dependent on other people, even the religious institutions. Our refuges and our bodhicitta are dependent on our own understanding, our own inner thought and determination. So to generate our bodhicitta motivation, have that awareness that it's possible to attain full awakening and the determination to do so, no matter how long it takes, no matter the difficulties you might go through, that this is something valuable. In fact, it's the only thing that's valuable in the long term. And so have the enthusiasm and mental stability to carry through with your practice from now until full awakening. So I think one thing that makes this text very special, at least for me, is, like I mentioned last time, that he speaks in the first person, and he's telling you exactly how he talks to himself and how he talks to his own self-centered mind and his own ego grasping. And so it's giving us a window into how to think as bodhisattvas, how a bodhisattva thinks, okay? So it isn't him teaching us, it's him showing us by example what he's doing. And that makes it very, very valuable. And then when you think of the difficulties that bodhisattvas go through, because when you read this text, he keeps calling himself out, doesn't he? He keeps calling out his self-centered mind, and you can see starting to go self-centeredness. No, you're not going to do that. This is how to do, okay? And so that's teaching us to learn to call out our own self-centered mind, okay, without thinking we're bad people without thinking we're failures, but being able to be honest with ourselves and see this stuff and then apply the teachings and remedy it. Okay? And that's what develops that inner strength and inner determination. Okay? Because if we're always relying on other people to be inspired, if we're always relying on other people, to tell us what to do, then if something happens to those other people, when they die, if they make a big mistake, then we begin to doubt our whole practice. Yeah. And our practice should not be dependent upon the good behavior of somebody else. Okay. Our practice needs to be dependent on our own investigation of the teachings, our own seeing the validity of the teachings, because we examine them with reasoning, we try them out, we see if they work with our own experience, and from that, we have faith. Okay, so our faith isn't just, we have this great teacher and there's so much brocade and high thrones and bells and whistles and titles and hats, because, all Buddhism has, this stuff, but the Tibetans especially. Yeah. And so if you rely on that to feel like, this is a good spiritual practice, then when all that goes away, yeah, you're left with nothing. So it's really important to practice on our own and develop that conviction on our own. Okay? And then, this happens, that happens, the other thing happens. You are stable and you are balanced. Okay, but without that, then, like I saw when Lama Yeshe died, many people went into spiritual crisis. It's like Lama's not there anymore. And what do I do? Who do I trust? Well, we trust the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Yeah, and our teacher helps to connect us so that we can make our own relationship with the three jewels. Okay, the teacher's the connecting point, but we have to study and examine the teachings and practice them, and through that, then the faith becomes very stable. So this is quite important, because scandals happen, and you have to be able to endure a scandal. Yeah, if your faith falls apart because there's a scandal, then you're relying too much on the institution and too much on the appearance of other people in this life. And you need to really connect with your own refuge. That's why, like right before I ordained, and I've told you this story many times, the translator of my teacher and the foremost nun ran off. The translator was a monk, she was a nun, and they ran off and, got married or whatever they did, okay? So this was right before I ordained, and I just went, because they were people I looked up to. But looking back on the situation, it was very good that happened, because it made me see, if this can happen to them, it can happen to me. And so I need to practice myself to transform my own mind so that my mind doesn't get hooked by attachment, And it really taught me, I have to focus on my practice and not rely on the good example of other people, because things come out of left field. And you don't know what kind of karma is going to ripen or what's going to happen. Okay, samsara is very unpredictable. So I can't depend on the vagaries of samsara for my refuge. Yeah, I have to depend on my own practice. And, that's going to come from learning the teachings, checking them out, with reasoning, practicing them, and, developing my own personal experience so I know they work. And then that stays stable. Okay. Otherwise, we're just looking for everybody else to inspire us. And we're not connecting with the three jewels in our heart. We become inspiration addicts. Yeah. You need to inspire me, and you need to inspire me, but we need to inspire ourselves. Okay. And that's exactly what Shantideva is teaching us how to do. And it is a hard process, to confront our own afflictions and especially our self-centered mind. It's not easy. Yeah. I mean, if this were easy, we would have been enlightened eons ago. Yeah. But just because it's hard, it doesn't mean you don't do it. Okay. In samsara, people go through all sorts of difficulties to get what they want samsarically. Yeah. I mean, people go through a lot in terms of getting an education, working at low jobs, all sorts of pain and suffering, just to get samsaric stuff. And we're not aiming for samsaric stuff. So it's going to be even, more challenging and require, enthusiastic perseverance and determination. But it's the one thing that's going to be stable in our lives, not just this life, but all of our lives in the future. Okay, and it's the one thing that we can count on to know that we're going in a good direction. So we have to develop that ourselves. And problems will come. We're in samsara. Yeah. If you expect that first I have to get the perfect situation, then I will practice the Dharma, then you're never going to practice, because when are you going to get the perfect situation in samsara? You never have it. Okay, so practicing with whatever we're dealt with in samsara, that is the Dharma practice. The Dharma practice isn't getting all of our samsaric stuff in order and then we go do something holy. It's confronting our own samsara. That's what Dharma practice is. It's working with our own mind. Okay. So we have to be very clear on this kind of thing. And we will make mistakes, and the people around us will make mistakes. We are in samsara. Don't expect your samsara to be perfect. Okay? And working with what comes up, that is how we develop strength. Okay? And that's what Shantideva is telling us how to do. Yeah? And he's telling us right in this chapter, like, from the very beginning things, like when you want to shout at somebody and tell them off because they looked at you cross-eyed, you hold your mouth and you try and make your internally to be like a piece of wood, because a piece of wood does not spout their anger all over other people. Okay? So, I mean, this is like a day-to-day occurrence, isn't it? We get mad all the time. And he's saying, okay, this is how to practice on a daily basis. And you've got to learn to do this. Okay? And, all sorts of stuff he's telling us that are really practical. I mean, in the upcoming verses, he's going to tell us how to eat, and how to sit, and what to do with your toothbrush, at least if you're using one of the old Indian toothbrushes. He's going to tell us all this kind of stuff, how to be considerate to other people, stuff that our parents taught us that we still don't know how to practice properly. Okay? So, we have to thank him, and we have to start with, doing the simple stuff, which is already hard enough because it's going against our own attachment. Yeah. And up until now, our attachment has ruled our lives. And I want what I want when I want it. Yeah, and that's been our mantra our whole lives. And so beginning to do something about that is, it's harder than pulling teeth. Okay, so verse 85, yeah, that's where we were. Well, let's review verse 84. When all of this is understood, what he's taught us before about cherishing others and not paying so much attention to our own body, not pampering the body. When this is well understood, I should always strive for the welfare of others. The far-seeing, merciful ones have allowed a bodhisattva to do some actions that for others were forbidden. So there I gave the example that often comes up in the scriptures about the captain of the ship and so on. And, unless you are willing to, unless your compassion is so strong that you're willing to go to the hell realms, to stop somebody else from, harming others, then you don't do that. Okay, so we don't use that story to rationalize our own anger. Okay, that clear? Do you remember the story? And yeah, okay. Because otherwise, we would justify it and we would go around killing everybody we didn't like. Yeah, and that's certainly not the way to attain enlightenment, isn't it? Is it? Yeah. Okay, then 85 says, I should divide my food amongst those who have fallen to lower realms, those without protection and practitioners, and eat merely what is sufficient for myself. Except for the 3 robes, I may give away all. So here he's talking about the practice of generosity. Okay, so divide our food amongst me, I, my, and mine. Okay, oh, no, that's not what he says here. Okay, I divide my food among those who have fallen to the lower realms, okay? Animals, hungry ghosts, hell beings. Yeah, we take care of the various animals around us. It's very hot outside now. I'm wondering if we should put out something for the deer, some water for the deer, but also I don't want the bugs to drown in the water. So it's difficult, but we do have a pond down the hill, so hopefully they will go down there. You know, and if we feed the animals, we feed them away from the building. Okay, let's not invite the bears to help us clean out our trash bags. Yeah. So we divide our food amongst those who have fallen to the lower realms, those without protection, so people who are impoverished. Yeah, so we, you know, when we receive extra food, you know, or like a whole lot of us, you know, different kinds of things, then we take it to the food bank. Yeah, it's very important that because our county is poor. Yeah, this is not a wealthy county, so it's very important that we support the people here. Okay, and we make donations to, you know, Feeding America, to, you know, the Tibetan nuns, to different charities, you know, because that's important to share the wealth. And practitioners, okay, so like the Tibetan nuns come into. Okay, so we share what we have. We don't just keep it all for ourselves. And we eat merely what is sufficient for ourselves. Okay, so we should eat well, keep our body nourished, keep our body healthy, keep our body at a proper weight, not too thin, not too fat, and you know, then we will be healthy and able to practice. Yeah, if we're too thin or we're too heavy, then difficult to practice. You know, it affects our health. Okay, and then except for our 3 robes, so he's talking to monastics here, I may give away all. So we can't give away our 3 robes, our shemdap, yeah, our chugu, and our namjar. Yeah, our zen is an added robe that the Tibetans added. Yeah, and the donka is as well. So we can give those away. If we have extra shemdaps, extra namjars, extra chugus, then we can also give those away. Yeah, you know, there's the right, especially for shemdaps, of sharing your shemdap. Yeah, but otherwise, the chugus and namjars we don't wear so often that we need to have duplicates of them. Okay. Unless you, you know, because I go to Taiwan to participate in the ordination, then I have the Chinese robes. Okay. Actually, I want to have a new set made in cotton instead of hot nylon. Yeah, I actually borrowed yours for the last time I went. Yeah. Okay. But we can give away everything. But, you know, so it's very good to share, but we should not put ourselves in a state where it's going to affect our health. Okay, because then that affects our ability to practice. Then 86, this body, which is being used for the sacred Dharma, should not be harmed for only slight benefit. By behaving in this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled. Okay, so earlier in the chapter, there's a great discussion about, you know, not pampering the body, not, you know, just trying to beautify it, not spoiling it, not being obsessed with, you know, what's going on with our body, but keeping it healthy, keeping it clean, and using it for the Dharma. Okay, so on one hand, we don't pamper the body, but on the other hand, we don't go to the other extreme and do ascetic practices. And so in the Buddha's life, that's what he showed us. He started out as a prince with all the, stuff. And then he saw that that wasn't the way to follow a spiritual practice. He gave that up. Later on, he did ascetic practices for 6 years, and he got so thin that when he touched his belly button, he could feel his spine. And then he realized that doesn't tame the mind either. Okay? And so he, left his 5 friends and had some porridge. And his 5 friends are calling him names and saying, you're a big cop-out, and you're a flake, and you're, this and that. But he ate, he crossed the river, he went and sat under the Bodhi tree, and that's when he became enlightened. Okay, so we have to take care of our body and not do some kind of ascetic trip. Yeah? But we have to not pamper the body either. Okay, so some kind of middle way, which is really difficult, isn't it? Yeah. So aim for that, and we always have to adjust it. So we don't harm the body for only a slight benefit. Yeah, so we may read the story of the Buddha giving his body to the mother tigress so that she can then feed her cubs. And we may think, oh, okay, I'm going to go out and find a tiger and give my body. And, because I want to practice just like the Buddha. Yeah, well, you give your body, that's fine. But if you don't have the spiritual realizations to control your rebirth, and some negative karma ripens at the time of your rebirth, then actually you're going to be further away from awakening because you fall to the lower realms, and it's difficult to get out of the lower realms once you fall to them. Okay, so we don't sacrifice the body if we don't have the realizations to maintain a solid Dharma practice after that, because that's why he says, by behaving in this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled. Because if we're able to maintain a human body and use it to practice the Dharma and, hopefully to gain realizations, but if we don't gain realizations this life, we plant a lot of good seeds in our mind, we do a lot of purification, we create a lot of merit, we can get a good rebirth next lifetime, then next lifetime we can continue to practice, and then we just keep getting good rebirths until we finally attain full awakening. Okay, and our full awakening is what fulfills the wishes of all beings, because as we get realizations along the Bodhisattva path and at full Buddhahood, then we're able to manifest many bodies and go out and really work for the benefit of sentient beings. And then we'll also have the powers, the supernormal powers, to see what other sentient beings' karma is, to know exactly what advice to give them. Because now we want to help others, but often our advice is sometimes not so good. Yeah. So we need those kind of supernormal powers so that we can really assess what are people's interests, what kind of Dharma teaching do they need at this moment, what advice to give them. Yeah. And so in order to gain that ability, we need to practice well. So we need to have an upper rebirth, which means this lifetime, we need to, as much as possible, keep our body healthy and live long so that we can practice. Okay. So, now somebody may need a kidney or something, while you're alive, if you have the confidence, and the surgery is safe, you want to give your kidney, that's fine. Then it's possible to survive on one kidney. But we should check out the situation and really make sure that mentally and physically we're fit if we're going to do that. At the time of death with organ donation, some people may want to do that, some people may not, okay, because at the time when you die, they harvest the organs as soon as possible, and your consciousness may not have left at the time when they harvest the organs, and that could adversely affect your rebirth. So some people may choose not to give their organs when they die. Other people may say, but I do want to give my organs when I die. And so that's a personal choice, and that's completely fine to do according to your own personal preference. Okay, there isn't a standard procedure for that. Okay, then verse 87, those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give their body away. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. So the great purpose is full awakening. Okay, so if we lack the pure intention of compassion, so if we may have compassion one moment, but the next moment we don't have it. Our compassion is not stable. If our compassion is not stable, okay, and like I said before, if we don't have the ability to control our rebirth, then probably not good to give our body away. Yeah. So there's some debate about this. The way I learned it was, path of seeing is, when you attain path of seeing, then you can give your body away because that's, that's the time when you have that mental power to control the rebirth. Other people have learned it saying path of preparation. Okay. So there's different ideas about it, so you need to check up yourself. Okay. But our focus should remain on what is going to enable us to become fully awakened according to our present abilities in the most expedient way possible. Okay. That clear to people? Yeah. So we don't want to get fanciful ideas of, I'm going to save the world when we are not equipped to do that. And when nobody can save the world, okay? It's not dependent on external things. External things help, so we need to be socially active. We need to change things in the society, but we need to change our minds too in order to make societal change stable and effective. Okay, 89. Nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man. Now remember, he's talking to monks here. Okay. What? Oh, I skipped a. Yeah. Okay, 88. Okay, the Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those who, like the sick, wear cloth around their heads, to those holding umbrellas, sticks, or weapons, to those with covered heads. Okay, and then it goes on, nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man. The vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings, although I should always pay equal respect to the dharmas of the lesser and higher beings. So this is about who to teach and who not to teach. Okay, so people who lack respect. So this is people who are trying to convert you, who have, or people who just have disdain for the Dharma. They're not open-minded. They don't really want to have interreligious dialogue or learn what you're saying. They want to either they're cynical and they want to either change your mind, or they're hooked into their own faith and want to convert you. Okay? So people who lack respect, who are not open-minded, it's useless, to engage in a discussion with them, because it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah? So with them, it's better to establish a friendly relationship, and then hopefully on the basis of friendship, then later, if their mind becomes more flexible, then they might be open to the Dharma. Okay? But if somebody is not open to the Dharma, it really doesn't do much good. Okay? But sometimes you can be very surprised by who is interested and who actually, you can tell the difference between people who question and people who pontificate. Okay? The people who are pontificating their own religion. But I must say, I've had discussions with people on planes, and what I've learned with people who try and convert me on planes is I'm not trying to convert them, but I try to get them to see that they need to be polite and respectful. Okay, so one time I was sitting next to one young man who was trying to convert me, and he was telling me about how he doesn't get along with his parents anymore because he's became a born-again Christian. And I can understand why, after talking to him, why his relationship with his family has degenerated. But he wanted to give me information, and I said, I will accept it if you will read some Buddhist material. It has to be a fair exchange here. And he got very quiet, and he said, I can't do that. So I said, then I'm sorry, I cannot accept your material either. Yeah. I sat next to another man who, and this is how the conversation usually is with people, is we have so much love and compassion for you that we want you to save you from going to the hell realm after you die, and the one way to do that is for you to accept Jesus as your savior, and I'm going to help you to do that. Okay, so there was a man who, this was what he was saying to me. And, I told him I'm a Buddhist. And he said, you're going to hell. That's really polite, isn't it? It's something that really puzzles me because, my sister-in-law, her father had just died. And her neighbors who were born-again Christians say, we're so sorry that your father's going to go to hell. I mean, that's so uncompassionate, but they think they're acting in the name of compassion. Anyway, don't be fooled by that stuff, yeah? So he was saying this to me, and I said, I don't kill, I don't steal, I'm celibate, I don't lie, I don't drink, uh, I'm keeping the basic morality that your spiritual tradition practices. Why would God send me to hell if I'm following those kind of precepts, and if I'm trying to be kind and compassionate and forgiving to other people? I'm following the instructions that you say are the way to live. Why would I be punished for that? Yeah. And I kept saying that, you know? And I said, you tell me you have compassion for me. Well, I have compassion for you too. Yeah. And part of compassion is to respect each other. And so I think if, because I've learned through a lot of experience, and I said, if you really want to follow what God and Jesus taught, then you have to respect other living beings, and especially people who are trying to live according to the same precepts that you live by, yeah, and not judge them. And yeah, I think that got through, because when we were deplaning, he said, oh, maybe I pushed a bit too hard. Or something, maybe he didn't say push, but maybe I spoke too much or whatever. Yeah, so I don't debate with people anymore or try to teach them the Dharma. Yeah, I try to pick out things in their own religion and encourage them to practice that. So in the early days of the Abbey, I remember some Jehovah's Witnesses came to our front door. I mean, they all the way up here. And, we have some good news for you. And I said, I didn't invite them in because I know the story. I said, thank you very much. We're a Buddhist community. I think if you practice love and compassion and forgiveness and non-harmfulness, that you will have a very happy life and you will benefit others. And those are the same things that we're practicing here. So I wish you well in your practice. Thank you. Goodbye. Yeah? So I was polite, I was respectful, but I wasn't going to start a dialogue because it wasn't going to go anywhere. And I didn't feel obliged to invite them in, So, yeah, and they were actually very happy with what I said. I said that, they smiled, because I was acknowledging that their, ethical conduct was good and that they were trying to develop compassion for others. And so they felt pleased by that. And I do respect that, And I'm not going to try and make them into Buddhists, because different people have different karma and different dispositions and different interests. And the important thing is that people find a spiritual tradition that connects with their hearts and that they practice that. They don't have to be Buddhist, And so for those people who feel, everybody was created in God's image, then yes, be respectful to other people. Don't kill them. Don't be prejudiced against them. Yeah, if God created all these people, then please respect everybody, no matter what political beliefs they have, no matter what sexual orientation they are, no matter, what color their skin. Respect everybody. And so you encourage them in what they already believe. And that's very helpful. Yeah. And then with some people who are really open-minded, like with our Catholic sisters, then we can really talk more freely because they want to know exactly what our practice is and how we practice. And we're quite curious in how they practice and how they deal with things too. Yeah. And so then you can have a real dialogue. Yeah. And that's very valuable. Yeah.
Years ago, when I was in Germany, I got invited for an interfaith dialogue, and the pastor, she then invited me for a mass, and she gave a talk, and in that talk, she said that, the church in Europe is losing its members, and she compared that with losing your child. So they're leaving home. and that they're going through a kind of grieving process. And I was astonished by her insight, that she is not just putting the scripture in front of her and arguing with some kind of text, but also looking into her mind and seeing that she personally feels sad because she doesn't understand. And there's a big need of connection, but so not recognizing really how to connect when others make different decisions, how to connect with the child that leaves the house.
Yeah.
And so I could not communicate further with her. I could not really, I wonder how to connect with people when they're going through that process, when they actually have fear that their faith is in decline or something like that.
Yeah. Then I think, again, just encourage them to keep practicing themselves, because the more they practice themselves, then the more they can be open with other people and inspire other people by their own example. So don't explain the Dharma to those who lack respect. To those who, like the sick, wear a cloth around their head. So in ancient India, some people wore turbans or cloths around their head. That was considered disrespectful. It's quite interesting. In some religions, you cover your head before you do something spiritual. In other religions, you take off anything that was on your head in order to be respectful. It's quite interesting, isn't it? You know, and similarly in different religions, how to dispose of like worn out religious texts. The Buddhists burn them. The Muslims put them they bury them. In Buddhism, if you bury a text, it's considered very, negative karma. For the Muslims, if you burn one of their texts, they don't like that. They say that's, not respectful. So it's quite interesting that everybody has the same idea, how do we respect texts, or how do we do, what clothes do we wear, how do we sit? Everybody has an idea of how to be respectful in that way, but their ideas are different. Yeah. So sometimes when I would give Dharma talks at Tushita, we would get Westerners coming, and they wore all sorts of stuff, and or they wore very little stuff, and they just didn't know. So you start the course, teaching them a little bit, and then you kind of introduce respectful ways of dressing and sitting and so on. Here, at least, we put it on our website, yeah, and we have things about how to dress on the website, so that's good. I mean, if somebody shows up here and they're in short shorts and down to here, or the guys walk in with no shirts at all, then we have to loan them some clothes. Okay. Not robes, but something else. Okay, so just basically, people have to learn, and it's a cultural thing that we have to go through to learn how to dress and act respectfully according to the environment that we're in and the people we're around. Yeah. So, so even when we're with other Buddhists, when we go to Taiwan, we wear something with sleeves, because that's, what is considered polite and respectful dress for monastics there.
Of course, we have an etiquette code here at the Abbey, but online we found that we needed to extend a little more information about how to participate in a Dharma teaching. And so with the Exploring Buddhism course, we sent them a very short, but how to dress appropriately, how how to sit and listen and not run for a cup of tea and lounge and those sorts of things.
Yes, that's good. And I think when we do Zoom things, it's good to send that out to all the participants, not just the exploring Buddhism, but everybody on the online courses. Because also it's very distracting when you're teaching and you want to see the audience on Zoom and they're getting up and down and walking and reading and checking their phone, and it's very distracting. So to tell them how to listen, yeah. That doesn't mean they do it, but we try. Yeah. Okay, to those holding umbrellas. So in ancient India, umbrellas usually, like the Dharma umbrellas, maybe it's only the wealthy people who use umbrellas. I'm not sure exactly how that is, but that might be the case. People holding sticks or weapons, yeah. Clearly, if they come for Dharma teachings, they have to, go down the hill, leave their gun at home, and then come back, okay? Of course, if you're in a difficult situation and a person has a weapon, then you try and talk Dharma to them without using Buddhist words to calm them down so that they don't hurt somebody with a weapon. Okay, but that's a situation in which, a situation you wish you weren't in, but there's danger around. Okay, but if somebody comes for teachings, then, certainly no weapons, and that's also on the website. And those with covered heads, okay, so again, in Buddhism, you take off your hats and when you listen to the Dharma, okay, and then nor to a woman unaccompanied by a man. So again, he's talking to monks here, so that makes total sense, yeah. As nuns, generally, you wouldn't teach a man privately, in an enclosed place without somebody else being present. So, but if you're, out in a public place and somebody asks you a Dharma question, yeah, and other people, can walk by, they can see you, then certainly you can answer their question or whatever. Okay, so this is talking about situations where you don't want to either put yourself in danger or cause gossip among other people. Okay. Or, you never know. Sometimes people might be attracted to you and, you want to relate to them in a Dharma way, but they want to relate to you in another way. So you have to be sensitive to that too. And if you sense somebody is attracted to you that way, then you wouldn't teach them privately or, alone in any kind of way, because that is not very helpful to people to encourage that kind of mind in them. And sometimes it's happened here. People have come here and you can see they're attracted to somebody, and we've had to intercede and say something to that person. Okay, the vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings. So people who are not interested in the Bodhisattva practice, yeah, who are not interested in Buddhism, then we don't teach them emptiness. We don't teach them bodhicitta, because it's not going to help them. Okay, one of our bodhisattva precepts is not to teach emptiness to people who are unprepared, because it would be very easy for them to misunderstand it and fall to a nihilistic attitude. They mistake emptiness for and think, oh, nothing exists, and that's very, very damaging to them. So we certainly don't teach the profound to people who are not at all prepared for it. okay? And you wouldn't teach bodhicitta to somebody who's not interested in it either. You could talk about how bodhicitta inspires you. You could share your own experience and say, I have heard these teachings and I find them very valuable and I respect them and so on. Okay, but you wouldn't encourage them and teach them the Bodhisattva practice if they were people who, were not interested. When I was at the monastery in Thailand, it was quite interesting. The master there was very respectful of my practice, and yeah, and he had some bodhisattva inclinations himself, because he went to Poto Shan and had, a very deep experience, and he wanted to make like a small temple for Kuan Yin at his place. He gave me some copper plates to take to His Holiness for His Holiness to bless, and then I brought them back, and then that would get used to when they were making a statue of Kuan Yin, or so he had something. His disciples were not as flexible as him, okay, and so I snuck in bodhicitta wherever I could, but I tried to do it tactfully because I was a guest at their monastery. I didn't want to get everybody inflamed about something. There was one monk in particular who was a bit difficult. And there was another monk who himself had come to retreats that I led and who practices Vajrayana. So, you have a variety of people. So I spoke about what was appropriate to each one. Yeah. So I had to do it individually because this one of them, he just didn't. Anyway, I don't need to say that, but yeah, he was just not ready to hear anything about Mahayana, so I didn't trouble him with that. Okay. So we teach what is appropriate to people, that will help them, that will validate the good things they're doing, and then encourage them to do more and to maybe stretch their minds and open their minds a little bit more. Yeah, but we don't push anything on people. Yeah. When the Mennonite church had an open house some years ago, we went. And I've always respected the Mennonites because of their ahimsa, the pacifist tradition. So I was talking to the minister's wife, and she said, "Do you people believe in God?" So what am I going to say? Hell no. It's like, that's not going to help anybody. So I said, well, it depends. I said, I talked about our ethical code, okay, and I said, if by God you mean love and compassion and kindness and forgiveness to others, yes, we definitely practice that. And we, here's our ethical code. And, I kind of laid that out for her. And she was very happy with that. I didn't need to say anything about God or Jesus or anything else like that, but just say the basic things that we do. And she smiled, she was quite pleased, because what's important is to create that connection with other people. And if you look at what His Holiness does, he'll go to Hindu things and, they'll mark him, and put things on him. He's fine with that. He went to Jerusalem. he went to the Wailing Wall and he put on a yarmulke, and all of his Jewish students are going, oh my God, look at that. His Holiness with a yarmulke at the Wailing Wall. And, because His Holiness, he relates to people at a heart level, not at a doctrinal level. Yeah? Not at a theological level, but at a heart level. And, so he does all of that, and it's fine. He has no problem with anybody else in that way. Okay. So the vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings, people who aren't prepared for it, although I should always pay equal respect to the Dharma of the lesser and higher beings. Okay, so within Buddhism, whether people are practicing the fundamental vehicle, the general Mahayana, whatever they're practicing, we encourage them in that. If they have some views that are quite limited, we don't encourage those limited views. But there's never fault in encouraging ethical conduct and kindness and compassion. Because those are universal values that are really important. And His Holiness says, whatever theology gets you to respect, to the point of wanting to behave properly and be kind to others, then that's good, the theology isn't what's important, it's what's in your heart. Okay, so we respect other people, but we don't encourage ideas that are incorrect. Okay. And then I should not communicate the Dharma of a lesser being to one who is a vessel for the vast Dharma. So for people who have the Mahayana disposition, we don't teach them just the fundamental vehicle. We can teach them the fundamental vehicle because the Mahayana is based on the fundamental vehicle, but we don't teach just that. Or as they say, you can teach everything except you don't emphasize striving for your own liberation. Yeah, but all the other teachings are exactly, they're what we practice too. And this is what has been really wonderful for me in working on the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, is learning more about the fundamental vehicle and the Theravada teachings and really respecting them, and at the same time, not aspiring for my liberation alone, because to me, without bodhicitta, then, your life just becomes meaningless. You have to, it's like, there's nothing better than bodhicitta. So, not even ice cream, not even chocolate. Okay? So we teach, the whole point here in all these things is we teach people according to what their tendencies are. Okay, so for people who aren't inclined towards Mahayana, we don't push that. For people who are inclined towards Mahayana, we don't teach just work for your own liberation. Okay. So I should not communicate the Dharma of lesser beings to one who is a vessel for the vast Dharma. I must not forsake the Bodhisattva's way of life, nor mislead others by means of sutras or mantras. So for our own self, we never forsake the Bodhisattva's deeds. Okay? So, you may stay at a Theravada place for a while. In our tantric precepts, they say not more than a week. But you don't go to a Theravada monastery and say, well, Tantra says I can't stay here more than a week because you are the lesser vehicle. I mean, come on. that's, and I say that because sometimes people get really fundamentalist about different things and are incredibly rude in my view. Okay, so the thing is, you don't want to, and we have bodhisattva precepts. Not the bodhisattva precept is not to prefer the fundamental vehicle or even non-Buddhist teachings more than what you already practice. It doesn't mean that you can't listen to them. It means that if you see your mind is inclining towards them, and you're inclining towards either giving up Buddhism or giving up bodhicitta, then you instantly pull yourself back from that. Okay. So I will not forsake the bodhisattva's way of life. And we won't use the bodhisattva's way of life or tantra to mislead others by means of sutras or mantras, by giving, like all sorts of, how to say, by giving the wrong impression of the Mahayana or giving the wrong impression of Vajrayana, because it can be very disturbing to people. And, people also who, some people, they've been exposed to, for example, Tibetans who don't keep their precepts very well, Tibetan monastics who don't keep their precepts well. And then they say Vajrayana isn't Buddhism and we don't want to go anywhere near it and da-da-da-da-da. And so those people, we certainly wouldn't teach about Vajrayana. People have asked me questions about it, and I will answer the questions. And I will frankly say, some people do not, some Tibetan monastics do not behave properly. And if those are the ones that you've seen or you've heard about, please understand that is, they are not following the teachings properly. Yeah, but don't, be prejudiced against Vajrayana or Mahayana in general because of the bad behavior of a few people. And then I will explain, because what they hear is, oh, Vajrayana people have sex and drink, and they think that's the path to enlightenment. So then you have to explain for high practitioners on the completion stage, who have these qualifications, and you list the qualifications, which are very, very high, And then you say that even His Holiness Dalai Lama says, just a few people who are alive now can do this, and anybody that he thinks is ready, he tells them to disrobe first. Yeah, so you explain that. Yeah, because I asked His Holiness about that, and he said, we were like, how many people can do that? He said, it's like less than what's in my, my fingers. So, and, and this is unfortunately what some people hear and see, or they confuse Hindu Tantra with Buddhist Tantra. And while there are some similarities, there's a whole bunch of differences. And, so you need to be able to explain the differences and so on. So you have to you have to speak in a way that cures their wrong conceptions, okay, without talking too much about completion stage practices. Yeah. So to just, say people who are very highly realized, there are certain exceptions made that have to do with dealing with the chi in the body, but there's very few people who are qualified to do that, and so here's the code of conduct for the rest of us, and so this is how we practice. And, this is, it's really sad when we have to be the people who explain other people's bad behavior. Yeah. When people come and say, why, and then I have no idea why people act like this. This is what our precepts say. This is what qualifications are. Not everybody practices like these few people, so you stay away from them, but there are many people who are reliable teachers. But it is a problem, and Venerable Buyan, for example, in discussing this whole thing of giving bhikshuni ordination, she is very hesitant, to work with Tibetan monastics, with Tibetan monks, with the nuns, with us, she's very happy. But with the monks, because of all these wrong ideas about Vajrayana that are in Taiwan. And I have people, for years, people write me, I'm kind of the go-to person when you don't understand why somebody's doing what the naughty things they're doing, and people ask me, why are they doing that? And so if people ask, I say, I don't know. I don't know why they're doing that. Ask them, because I have the same question. This is not how we're supposed to practice. So I cannot explain why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah. So you don't talk bad about the person, but you can specify, these are actions that are in accord and these actions aren't. Okay. Something I really dislike. But you have to do it for the benefit of Dharma, to explain something about, what the right Tibetan practice is.
I have a question about a situation that came up in a monastic gathering of different people from different traditions, where someone, very kindly and generously offered a deity practice and mantra. Really, that's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard afterwards that one of the Theravada nuns was really quite taken aback, like, this is Buddhism. So it just made me wonder about how, even in those kinds of circumstances, how freely to offer that sort of practice.
Yeah, I mean, to chant a mantra, I don't think there's if you
Visualizing light going out, and it wasn't super detailed, but
yeah, what you could preface it with, because you were invited to do it, that person who came knows that they're going to hear something from another tradition. They're told beforehand, and they're also told that this is in the spirit of intra-Buddhist respect, so they know what they're getting into. Yeah, so if it's just, a simple visualization and chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, fine. You certainly wouldn't do anything with highest class tantra or self-generation or anything like that. Yeah. But, chanting, all the traditions chant. And if you, I would probably tend to tell people, visualize the Buddha, because the Buddha is common to all the Buddhist traditions. So visualize the Buddha, and we're going to chant the Buddha's mantra. I don't think that would push anybody's buttons. But as soon as you start talking about multiple heads and arms and different colors, people may say, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. But if somebody's told beforehand, they know what they're getting into. Yeah.
What should lay practitioners be careful about when doing different practices from the different vehicles, mixing Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana?
Okay. I don't know the context in which the person is asking, because just going to a teaching one time or in the space of interfaith camaraderie, it's one thing. But in your own personal practice, if you're going to multiple teachings and attain and hearing teachings from all the different vehicles, in that situation, then you have to know the general Buddhist teachings. And if you have a heart, of Mahayana, then you have to make sure that you keep your bodhicitta. If you've taken Vajrayana empowerment and you have commitments, then you must still keep those, although you can go to teachings from other vehicles. What you want to make sure of is that you don't kind of get super confused, and that you maintain clarity in your own mind about how the vehicles fit together, and that they all go back to the Buddha. Okay, but it sounds like this person's asking a question of involving their own personal practice, which I can't answer if I don't really know the circumstance in which they're asking it. So I just gave some general advice there.
I remember you tried to establish a monastery together with one in the Theravada, and I also know a nunnery where there's a Theravada nun and now living there since a couple of years already. So, but then according to our Bodhisattva precepts, we should not stay longer with...
That's according to Tantra precepts, not Bodhisattva precepts.
You're right.
And it's staying at a monastery and with somebody who is going to try and get you to practice their vehicle. If somebody's respectful of the Mahayana and they join in your practice, and there's no disharmony, then there's no problem. Okay, but if somebody is saying, oh, Mahayana, that's not even the teachings of the Buddha, then you don't want to stay a long-term time with that person, because that will, or that community, because that could adversely influence your mind. Okay, but, if they're the only Buddhists around and you're living in communist China or some communist state, then that's a whole different situation. Okay. Yeah.
And I never heard about Hindu Tantra. I don't know, maybe I can look it up myself, but if you can say something to that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Hindu Tantra either, but, some of them do talk about sex and alcohol, but just, that's not the Buddhist practice. They do different exercises with the winds and channels and drops that can be similar to Buddhist Tantra, but the goal is very, very different. Okay, because the goal in Buddhism, well, first of all, the refuge objects are different. So we have refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Our goal is full awakening. Okay, in the Hindu Tantras, I don't really know much about them, but it's done without refuge, probably without an understanding of emptiness, or without bodhicitta, which are things that are very important to do to practice Buddhist Tantra. Okay? If somebody says, gee, are you a Tantra practitioner? And they're like, are you having sex and drinking? It's like, yes, I do very, basic tantric practices, which are based on the Mahayana, which are based on the Four Truths. We practice the Four Truths, we practice ethical conduct, we practice concentration, we practice wisdom, and then in addition to all of, bodhicitta, and then in addition, I do some tantric practice, but it has its own set of I keep the basic Buddhist morality. Yeah, that's what's important. Yeah. You don't say, oh yeah, I practice, this and that. One time when I lived in France, we were friends with some Catholic nuns, And we went to visit them. And one time they came to visit us, and one of the newly ordained nuns on our side, she set up her altar very nice because we were going to show everybody her. And she had a picture of Vajrayogini on her altar. Well, that kind of freaked the Catholic nuns out. So, when you're inviting guests over, then, you don't do that. And you'll notice around here, we do not have any tankas of couples in public display, because when they talk about Tantra being a private practice, I think it's good. And because to not, because we have all sorts of people coming to see us. And we don't want to give them the wrong idea. So we don't have any of that on display at all. Okay? Yeah, we don't have wrathful figures on display either, because people, they get freaked out by that as well. So all that, I think better, we just, if you do that practice, you take it out. When you do the practice, you put it away afterwards.